Hi, I'm Diane, your host of Epic Conversations. And today, our special guest is Susan Faridi. Have you ever wanted to know what a surrendered life looks like? Well, Susan is a great example, and she's going to tell us about it. Susan said yes to God's call on her life to take the gospel of Jesus Christ to Muslims. She's married to her handsome husband, Mohamad, for 10 years, and together they disciple the Iranian and Afghan believers to become leaders in their own nations, and they can change the destiny for their nations. And she's also the director of operations for the Iranian Christians International. So we're honored to have her, and we thank you for joining us, and you are going to be blessed. Thank you. We appreciate you. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Diane.
Thank you so much for being on the program. And
thanks for having me. It's been a wonderful honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're excited to hear about, the topic you had on your heart was a surrendered life. So tell us about yourself and how you surrender in a good way,
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times as Christians, especially if you've grown up in a Christian home and were raised, to believe, that a lot of people think, once they get to college or they get further, I don't have a testimony, or they feel condemned because they have chosen to live a life that is pleasing to God. And so I battled with that sometimes because, you hear testimonies of these dramatic things of people coming from all these things and just a dramatic change in their life. And, but then I came to realize that, my testimony is how I surrendered to God, how I decided at a young age to live a life that was pleasing to God, and that's my testimony.
Amen.
And
that's a beautiful.
So yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing, and so much the enemy tries to condemn. I've heard other various people over the years talk about the same thing that I battled through, with the mindset of, I don't have anything to share because I, was raised and born again at a young age. I lived, the calling of God, but I don't have anything to share with the drag addict on the street or the, homeless person or, the people that are down and broken. But really and honestly, we do have something to share because of the life of Christ in us.
Yeah.
And the hope that is in us. And so, at the age of 18, you had said, I said yes to the call. And that was before even many people knew Muslims or in America. America was before 9/11. We just lived in our bubble of, the American dream. But so I heard a missionary, he came to our church, and he had just been to Pakistan, and he was explaining what all that went on and all the testimonies and things. And he said, there's people here in this congregation that feel called to go to reach the Muslims. And I knew at that time that he was, that I was one of them. And then later, at the end of the service, he came, he sat down next to me, he handed me this Pakistani rupee, and he said, you're one of those people that is called to go to reach the Muslims.
How did he
know? I still have that, that rupee, that dollar, or the however much currency it was. But as a reminder, God really had a plan for my life. At a young age, 18. I mean, that's still young. You're still trying to figure out life. So in my process, because up until that point, all I really wanted to do, and I had told everybody, I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to get married and have a family and settle down and be around my parents and just do the normal Midwestern life, farm, that community where you get married, you have kids, you settle down near your parents, and yeah, that's life. And so but that began the journey of seeking God, like, okay, Lord, well, what's this look like? What do I need to do? And then ended up going to Bible school, going to college. And when I was in college, I was going to a church that the pastor was from Iran. And it was a very international church, exposed me to a lot of like different internationals, different cultures, different things. And in that process, like God just started just really opening my eyes to see like that the heart that he has for Muslims, or the heart that he has for Hindus or other people groups and other religions that are they're in bondage. And then I ended up working for them at the church, and that's how I got involved with working with Iranians. But like the Lord, step by step, takes you through the processes, and when you say yes to one thing and you do that, you may not know the next steps. Like I went to Bible college, that's all I knew to do. And so for 3 years I was there, and then I graduated and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I was like, well, I have a Bible college degree, but that's not going to get me any kind of job, outside of working in a church and, or so then I went to college and got a business degree. But it's like there's certain steps in life that we may not know exactly when you take the first step, we take it, and then how God just orchestrates our lives. And so like even how, I worked for this ministry for 10 years with Iranians, and met a lot of different other Iranian ministries, helped do trainings for the underground church. Like, all of this stuff was in preparation for what we're doing now. Because like I began to understand the Iranian culture, the hospitality that comes behind it, that and then just even knowing people, like who these people are, and having met them before, like because now we come across some of these, the same like ministries that are doing things with Iranians, and having that connection all those years before has helped to open a door, and like, oh, okay, like, I've met you before, like there's not like that whole like initial like starting over with people and connections and ministry. So it's just an interesting thing how God, when you say yes to God, you don't know the exact journey. You don't know the exact steps. And I think a lot of us, especially in America, like we need to have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G all planned out before we even say yes. Like, and the requirement from God is just to say yes and to trust Him that He's going to lead, He's going to guide, He's going to provide. So that's the journey, of just surrendering to the yes of the call that God has. And it may not even be, some people are like, well, I need this big, I'm going to do all these big things, but, yes to, okay, well, you're going to be one of those ministering to Muslims. Well, maybe it was only one Muslim that I would have ministered to, and that would have still fulfilled the call of God if that's what He wanted. But like, just not trying to figure it out, but then just saying yes and taking the steps and the way that God would have for you to go. So that's part of the...
Goodness. And what I think is amazing is that, in this culture in the United States, we have this mindset, well, I'm going to, be a housewife and a mom and not go to college. And then before you knew it, now God, once you surrendered to Him, now you're going to college. And then the next thing, He puts the Muslims in your heart. I'm like, how did that guy know?
He was a well-known prophet and in our area, but he was a missionary, he just knew. Like
he just knew.
Yeah.
And if you had never surrendered, you may never have met your husband Mohamad.
For sure.
You may never be doing what you're doing today in the Iranian Christians International.
Exactly. So, yeah. I mean, even like the positions, or like the things that for the ministry we're doing now, like I had that, God put me in other jobs and other positions to train me, to teach me how to do the certain things that are needed now for the ministry. So it's not like all these times and all these things, because I think a lot of people think, well, it's a waste because I'm not doing what I think I should be, the calling exactly in my head, what God has called. But that time is God preparing you and getting, even instilling in you like the gifts and the things, or the how to do things for in preparation for things. So like, for instance, like bookkeeping, or like accounting, or understanding the ministry world and how the behind the scenes stuff works. Like for us, but like for any other person, like maybe God's put you to working in a film department, just behind the camera on a, just sitting, but you're learning things. You never know like what jobs or what places God puts you, how that's going to all weave together in the end, many years later, to where he has the exact calling that you're stepping into. I mean, I was in that calling the whole time, but the exact like moment when things are, you're prepared to do what he has for you.
It's true. So is that, you do a lot of administrative behind the things, and you support your husband, and you go and meet with the Muslims and the Iranians, and you have a heart for these people. And it's just, and you guys are just doing such a wonderful work in your ministry. It is just beautiful what God is doing. I mean, I just think that is just so awesome.
Right.
That you have surrendered. And it's like, it doesn't matter, because when you're in God's perfect will, isn't there like a satisfaction?
There is. There's a satisfaction of knowing that you're doing what God has and created you to do. Not necessarily has for you to do, but created you to be.
Created you.
And I think in this world now too, there's so many people think that they have to fit a certain image, or a certain look, or a certain personality, or they look at things and then they downgrade themselves because they're not fitting that image. But in essence, they're really saying, God, I don't like who you created me to be. And so when there comes a point where you have to be like, okay, God, you created me this way. You gave me this personality. You made me this way. You have specific things for me to do. And it doesn't matter, like, if I don't have this specific look, if I'm not a polished speaker, or if I'm, short, tall, whatever, the world dictates is the norm, then, that's one thing you have to be, I think, nowadays, is to not compare. The Bible really warns us about comparing ourselves with other people. And
that is,
we have to be careful about that, because then when we start comparing and we wishing we were a certain way, then we're really saying, God, I don't like who you created me to be. And God is the creator, and God created you for a specific purpose and for a specific reason in life.
That is so true, because it's like, and also in God's timing, it's like, okay, I'm a certain age, I should be getting married, or I'm a certain age, I got to go to college, or I should be having kids by now, or I should be doing all this. Who is the world? Is like, who's dictating all these things? And it's not God.
Exactly.
So there's a freedom in going, it doesn't matter. And then, like you were saying, I was just talking to my husband John about this the other day, about not comparing ourselves to other people.
Right.
Not that he was it. I was saying, God, it's like, and I use the example of like a little pinky. If you're the pinky in the body of Christ, this little nail here, that pinky cannot compare themselves with the liver.
Exactly.
Or the ear, or the eye, or any other part of the body, because it's just fruitless.
Right.
But how often, with the pressure sometimes you feel from society, people start comparing, well, I guess I'm not And then here it comes the self-call. I'm
Right.
not this or I'm not that. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then you catch yourself thinking, wait a minute.
Exactly.
What does God say? This is the timing. This is the plan. This is what God says. I'm hooked up with him.
Right.
Who cares?
And then you just trust.
And
that's when you trust that the timing and everything is going to work out. So, yeah.
That is beautiful. Any other final words you have to say?
I just think, like that's the big part of my heart for people is to know, like when you just following God and following what he would have for you. And it's not a big complicated thing. And it's not a big, as is, the Western thinking or the American thinking of just everything laid out. But as we follow God, he opens the doors, he shuts other doors, even meeting with people or even your spouse, finding your spouse. Like sometimes we have this ideal of in our head of what it's going to look like, where we're going to meet, what age we're going to be, like as women, we have everything planned out from when we're little, like everything. But when you trust God and you follow him, he's got the best timing, the best person, the best everything. But it's just learning to trust God and to rely on that. So
it's the trusting. Well, we both got winners. I mean,
Exactly.
How did you know? I got to ask you this. How did you know Mohamad was the one? Like, how did you know? I'm romantic at heart.
We both, our first date, we just both knew. So over conversation. So, but then, we took time to really, okay, Lord, like double check that with God. Like we both spent time praying and seeking the Lord before we, got off too far and then it wasn't the right thing. So, but we just really, we trusted the Lord in it. And we both heard from God on separately that this was who we were supposed to be with. And then truly, honestly, that's what has carried us through all of life, is knowing that we heard from God each individually, that this is who who God wants for us and as a spouse. And then you can go back to that, because marriage is not easy, and life is not easy and circumstances, but then you can just say, no, like this is who God has given me as a spouse and help me. So
amen.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I like that. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
This was very good.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you. And thank you for joining us. I mean, this is powerful. Don't let the world or other people define who you are and when you're supposed to do this, that, and the other thing. Let God be the one, your personal relationship with Jesus, be the one who tells you who you are and what you're going to do when. Trust in God. This was very, very good. Share this episode with a friend, and we thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time. We'll have all the information about their ministry in the notes. Now, in the meantime, have an epic conversation with Jesus. Hi, I'm Diane Grubus, and I've started a ministry, and I want to bless you. I'm so excited about it. DianeGrubus.com. Go to the website and check out all the wonderful things that we have in store for you. We have some great epic conversations with some powerful guests and some teachings, free downloads. And we would love to have you join us, love to have you partner with us. We appreciate you and we want to hear from you. So check out the website and thank you.